Billionaire discovers school friend as waitress. What happens next will leave you speechless. Jacob Stewart, at 35, reigned over the towering skyline of Chicago, bearing the polished label of a self-made billionaire. Yet as he surveyed the glass and steel shafts of corporate wealth, he felt an unsettling hollowness reverberate in the depths of his chest. Each day, he navigated boardrooms and tech jargon, a fortress of luxury enclosing him, but the euphoria that success promised barely lingered. Those were fleeting moments trapped in a gilded cage, one devoid of warmth and connection. One evening, craving authenticity against the backdrop of hollow extravagance, Jacob found himself drawn to a cozy diner nestled under the shadows of skyscrapers. The neon sign flickered a pale introduction to the world he had left behind. Sliding into a booth, he ordered a plate of fries, the aroma rekindling fragments of simpler times, snippets of afternoons filled with laughter rather than conference calls. As time slipped through the cracks of his overworked mind, he looked up and was jolted by a familiar face framed by an aproned Sarah. "Jacob?" She beamed, her eyes sparking recognition despite her worn shoes and tired smile. Memories flooded back, their shared dreams of becoming artists, unburdened by corporate ladders. But as they shared a plate of fries, he couldn't ignore the lines of hardship etched deep on Sarah's face. He felt an almost palpable stab of guilt twist his gut. How could someone so vibrant become a mere shadow, blending with the diner's faded decor? As she recounted her father's illness and the subsequent collapse of her family's stability, Jacob's heart shifted, constricting painfully. The fires of ambition he once carried seemed to fizzle out in her presence, revealing unresolved questions in his heart. Should he help? The thought ignited a storm. Would offering her a position at his company be a lifeline, or a bitter reminder of the world he now inhabited? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the night wore on and he drove home in the luxury of his expensive car, navigating poorly lit streets, Jacob felt the torment of indecision course through him. Each bend and turn mirrored his spiraling thoughts, racing between compassion and the fear of judgment. His power had transformed into a double-edged sword. Offering Sarah assistance risked not only his reputation, but the very friendship they were so desperately trying to reclaim. Imagining her face when he suggested a job, her eyes might reflect resentment, the sting of charity disguised as help. She had fought for her place in a world that didn't care. Would he become just another distant billionaire dangling bait? The tension brewed within him, a cacophony echoing the values they once shared, now obscured by the complexity of wealth. Had they truly strayed so far from their roots that confronting their past felt perilous? In a moment of desperation, he sensed the gap between them widening, a chasm echoing deeper than Chicago's skyline. As he glanced at the diner from afar, an unquenchable flame flickered within, a longing not just for Sarah's friendship, but for the authenticity of a life lived beyond the constraints of numbers and expectations. Would this drive propel him to break down walls, or cement their worlds apart forever? The unyielding questions clawed at him as his heart felt heavy with what lay ahead, leaving him precariously perched on the edge of possibility and regret, restless and yearning for the next move. The morning after his encounter with Sarah, Jacob awoke with a weighty sense of purpose that contrasted sharply against the familiar hum of luxury in his penthouse. He dressed meticulously, but lacking the usual confidence that accompanied his tailored suits. Instead, today felt different. His reflection revealed a man conflicted, grappling with the decision that loomed over him like a storm cloud. As he settled into his high-tech office, surrounded by colossal screens displaying figures and trends, the numbers blurred amidst his swirling thoughts. Each meeting felt trivial, an echo of all that was hollow in his life. The discourse of strategy and profit seemed distant, overshadowed by more pressing matters. The insistent memory of Sarah's tired smile haunted him, a constant reminder of the life he had left behind. In that moment, He realized the shocking truth. Though he was scaling mountains of financial success, he was, in many ways, unmoored from the life he had once cherished. His assistant, Ava, entered with a stack of reports, but Jacob's mind was elsewhere. "Can we reschedule the afternoon?" he asked, surprising himself with the abruptness of the request. She raised an eyebrow, clearly taken aback, but nodded. As the door closed behind her, Jacob let out a breath he hadn't noticed he'd been holding. A wave of purpose flooded through him, urging him to take action, to reach out, to make a difference. With a newfound determination, he reached for his phone but hesitated. Would a text or a call merely feel like an impersonal gesture? Instead, he decided to return to the diner. He needed to confront this flicker of guilt and uncertainty head-on, to explore the complexities of aligning his worlds while bridging the gap that had widened so significantly. Arriving at the diner, he noticed a sense of nostalgia wafting through the air, a stark contrast to the cold, sterile environment of corporate boardrooms. He stepped into the warmth of the diner, the familiar jingle of the bell above the door ushering him into a realm untainted by wealth. As he approached, Sarah caught his gaze, her face lighting up in recognition, yet tinged with apprehension. He could see the muscles of her smile strain against the reality of her situation, a bittersweet echo of past camaraderie. "Jacob, back for more fries?" she teased, yet her voice cracked slightly. "Actually, I was hoping for a conversation." The admission surprised him, as if the words had slipped unbidden into the atmosphere. She wiped her hands on her apron and gestured to a vacant booth in the far corner, a spot seemingly away from the chaos of the diner. As they slid into the booth, he noticed how the warmth of her presence felt like a counterbalance to his previously icy self. He started to explain his struggle, his sense of longing for the paths not taken, but Sarah intercepted him before he could dive too deep. "Why are you really here, Jacob?" Her question, straightforward and penetrating, pulled at the delicate strings of his heart. His breath clipped in his throat. The immediate answer lingered on the tip of his tongue, a simple desire to help. Yet, the layers of their shared past complicated the true intention. Would admitting he felt guilty for living in excess while she struggled feel like an insult? Or would it reveal a vulnerability he had long learned to suppress? Jacob rubbed the back of his neck, a nervous habit he indulged in since his younger days. "I want to help you, Sarah. I want to offer you a position at my company." Silence thickened the air, the weight of the moment suffocating. As he locked eyes with her, he saw a mixture of shock, confusion, and something deeper, maybe even suspicion. Then, she met his gaze with unwavering intensity. "Why, Jacob?" The question reverberated within him like a haunting echo. The foundation of his intentions stood on shaky ground, for the answer offered more than just a job. It exposed his own anxieties and insecurities. Could he confront the man he had become, or would fear once again dictate the choices he made? As the diner buzzed around them, two worlds collided in an electric moment of truth. Jacob was poised at the edge of an emotional precipice, a dark cloud of uncertainty swirling within him as he prepared to reveal the complicated truth behind his offer. Would it tether them together, or push them apart forever? He inhaled sharply, bracing for impact. The walls he had built began to tremble under the weight of his choice. The response he feared and craved lingered in the air, heavy and charged, leaving both Jacob and Sarah suspended in possibility. A beat hung in the air, thick with unanswered questions. Jacob's heart raced as he faced Sarah, her skepticism mirrored in the deep lines etched across her brow. The diner faded into the periphery, the clinking of dishes and low conversation reducing to a distant murmur as he sat across from her, acutely aware of the gravity of his words. "Why, Jacob?" she asked again, this time with a softer edge that tugged at his conscience. "I don't know," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. Confession poured from him like a storm, unplanned and raw. "Maybe I'm trying to make up for all the times I failed to seize the moment. I've built this life, but it feels empty. I thought that by offering you a job, I could fill some of that void, maybe even bring a bit of worth back into my life." Jacob's admission hung precariously between them. Time seemed to stall, expanding the space into something larger than the booth itself. He could feel the weight of his past choices squashing the air, yet the moment also felt liberating, as if laying bare his honesty could mend the fractures shaking his existence. After a long pause, Sarah leaned back, her arms crossing defensively over her chest. What makes you think I'd accept it? Her voice carried a sharp edge, breaking through the silence like a knife. I'm not some charity case, Jacob. I have my pride. I always have. The bite in her words stung, forcing Jacob to confront the discomfort that bubbled within him. He wasn't offering her a handout. He was attempting to forge a bridge, yet he knew he couldn't paint it as anything noble. I'm not trying to belittle you, Sarah. I know you're strong. I always have. And yet you think I need your help? Her laughter was sharp, a clear indication of the skepticism that snaked through her guarded demeanor. The truth is, Jacob, I am doing just fine. In that moment, frustration surged inside him. You've got a roof over your head and food on the table. Sure, but at what cost? You're scrapping by while I'm drowning in wealth that feels meaningless. That's why I'm here. I thought you might want a chance to do something that matters. More? She retorted, her voice rising slightly. More than this. I might not have your fancy suits and corner office, but I've carved out a life I can stand behind. Something in the firmness of her resolve struck a chord within him. She was right. Despite his good intentions, he was the one who had strayed from values that mattered. He craved to help, but realized now that offering her a position could easily become another brand of oppression, a way to soothe his conscience rather than uplift her spirit. Perhaps I should have thought more about how this offer appears from your side, he said, shifting the responsibility. I don't want you to feel like I'm trying to save you. I want to work together. Her expression softened, and for a fleeting moment, Jacob saw the vulnerability behind her guarded facade. Yet Sarah quickly masked it again. You talk a good game, but can you promise me one thing? What's that? He leaned closer, intrigued by the glimmer of her resolve. Promise me you won't turn this into a pity project because I want to be a part of it. The ground beneath him shifted with her words. He could sense the threads of their past weaving tightly around them, the uncharted territory of shared history combining with their current realities. He needed to stop thinking of this through the lens of his affluent existence and reevaluate his intentions. I can't promise you anything except I want to be honest, he responded, his voice steadier now. I need to make changes in my life too. For the first time, the acknowledgement of mutual growth lay between them. Still, an undercurrent of uncertainty lingered, as palpable as the scent of coffee in the air. Then maybe we should start with understanding the true value of what we both want, she suggested, her tone softening. If I say yes, if we work together, it has to be on equal footing. As Jacob nodded, the possibilities swirled in his mind. This was a genuine chance for growth, not just for him, but for both of them. It would be a shift in the paradigm of their lives, challenging him to bridge the gap without resorting to the arrogance of his success. Yet, even as they exchanged hesitant smiles, the shadows of doubt clouded Jacob's thoughts. Would he be able to uphold this promise of equality? Could he build a partnership that could withstand their contrasting environments? As he contemplated the path ahead, he realized this was only the beginning. Without a clear direction, the journey before him stood at an intricate intersection of vulnerability and ambition. It was the perfect breeding ground for something transformative if only he could navigate the complexities of both their lives. The moment of truth awaited, but the answers remained elusive. At that moment, Jacob understood he was not merely offering Sarah a job. He was confronting the very foundations of who he was meant to become. The following afternoon, Jacob found himself pacing the expanse of his office, the gleaming glass walls offering a panoramic view of the bustling city below. Each hum of life outside felt like a taunt, a stark contrast to the growing uncertainty that weighed heavily on his mind. He had initiated a path toward collaboration with Sarah, yet the challenges seemed insurmountable. Could he truly uphold the promise they had made to each other? As he meandered through his thoughts, he absent-mindedly kicked at the corner of his desk, an impulsive act ignited by frustration. Thoughts of their conversation replayed in his mind like a broken record. His offer had been a catalyst for an emotional storm, a confrontation of identities, ambitions, and the chasm between them. Yet he reached for his phone, scrolling through contacts until he paused at Sarah's name. A pang of urgency hit him. He needed to act decisively and not let fear dictate his next steps. This wasn't just about their professional collaboration. It was about rediscovering the values he had lost in the expansion of his empire. Hesitantly, he tapped the screen and proceeded to text, "Can we meet again?" I've been thinking we need to clarify what we're stepping into. Half an hour later, he arrived at the small coffee shop where they first met. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee filled the air, mingling with sweet pastries. He selected a quiet corner table, its intimacy starkly contrasting his sprawling office. For the first time, he felt the weight of his surroundings grounding him. This space was alive with possibility, a backdrop for the beginnings of something intended to be significant. When Sarah breezed through the door, her presence demanded attention. The confidence radiating from her frame was undeniable, and Jacob felt a stirring of admiration mixed with anxiety. Today, he wasn't just a businessman to her. He was a potential collaborator seeking accountability and mutual respect. "Thanks for coming," he stated as she joined him. The gravity of their previous conversation settled around them, thick enough to choke the air. "Let us not waste time, Jacob," she said straightforwardly, her eyes scrutinizing his every move. "What is on your mind?" He inhaled deeply, bracing himself for the journey ahead. "I realize now that this isn't just me offering you something. It's a partnership, one that needs clarity. I want to understand what you envision for yourself within this project." Sarah's brow furrowed slightly, as if she were determining whether his newfound honesty could be trusted. "You mean work? You want to take my skills into consideration?" She seemed skeptical, but there was a flicker of intrigue behind her facade. "Exactly," he affirmed, his pulse quickening. "You're a talented waitress, but I know you're capable of so much more. I want to provide you a platform to utilize your skills on a larger scale. But I can't dictate everything. This must be a shared trajectory." Her expression remained guarded, yet Jacob saw the inner tension flicking within her. "Why now, Jacob? Why this sudden shift?" He rubbed the back of his neck, reflecting. "I've been wrapped in my own world, it's true. But the way you responded to my offer made me look inside. I need this to mean something beyond just advancing my business. Or saving your conscience," she countered boldly, the light in her eyes sharp. He was caught off guard by her candor, yet something shifted inside him. "Maybe you're right, but I think I owe it to both of us to explore what we can create." The challenge hung in the air. She seemed to ponder over his words, weighing his sincerity against her past experiences. Suddenly, she leaned in closer, her expression shifting as a realization struck her. Would we be able to let go of the baggage of our past? Could we work together free of old judgments? "Yes," Jacob responded, the conviction flowing through him. "That means accepting the truth of what we've come from without letting it restrain where we're headed." As they exchanged hesitant glances, a profound silence enveloped them, rich with potential. For the first time, he felt a mutual understanding nestled in the air between them, a fragile, yet potent seed waiting for the slightest bit of encouragement to grow. Jacob realized they stood on the precipice of a daunting yet exhilarating journey. The stakes were high, and uncertainties loomed like storm clouds. Yet deep down, a flicker of determination ignited within him, the desire to let go of pretense and step into the unknown. As he looked into Sarah's eyes, he could see that she was weighing her own risk factors. Just as he was about to speak again, a loud crash echoed from the kitchen, slicing through the moment. Both of them turned instinctively toward the source of the distraction, a chaotic kitchen scene plunging them back into reality. The clatter of dishes reminded him that the outside world was teeming with unpredictability. "What was that?" Sarah's voice pierced the air, but Jacob's thoughts diverged as he smiled, a sense of lightness returning as he noted the spontaneous, messy beauty of life. It mirrored his own situation, untidy yet filled with potential. Just one of the many things we'll have to navigate together. Jacob's mind buzzed with possibilities. And in this moment of turbulence, he realized he was ready to carve out a path toward transformation, not merely for himself, but for Sarah and their budding partnership as well. But as he shifted focus back to her, the doubt lingered: would they have what it takes to actually forge a new future together, untethered by their past? The uneasy silence lingered, leaving both of them on edge as they faced a road that was both uncertain and vital. Jacob's heart raced as he attempted to steady himself. The stark contrast between the chaotic kitchen behind them and the fragile quiet of their conversation felt emblematic of his own internal struggle. This was more than a meeting about business. It was an encounter that challenged his understanding of what success truly meant. "Let's break this down, Sarah," he began, his tone purposeful. What do you need from me in this venture? It has to be more than just skills. It has to align with your aspirations, too. She considered his question carefully, her brow knitting together as if trying to unravel a complicated puzzle. I need autonomy, Jacob. Sure, I want to channel my creativity and skills, but not if it means being just another cog in your machine. I want to build a brand that is mine as much as it is yours. His chest tightened at her insistence. This was unlike the conversations he typically had. Here, there were nuances he had often brushed aside in the pursuit of profits. I understand. How do you envision that? What does success look like for you? Success? She repeated, almost in disbelief. For me, it's about connecting with people. It's about telling stories through what we create. I want to foster a community, not just sell products. Her eyes shimmered with enthusiasm, but dimmed quickly when she sensed his hesitation. Creating a community involves risks. It's messy, unpredictable, he replied cautiously. It's a deviation from my usual strategy, where I control the narrative. We can't grow if we only stick to what we know, she challenged, her voice steady. You've grown your empire through calculated decisions, yes, but have they propelled you toward genuine fulfillment? Her words hung in the air, and Jacob felt a flicker of defensiveness rise within him. Did he want fulfillment, or was it enough to control the game? That was the first crack in the wall he had built around his ambitions. I've built something significant, but maybe I've lost sight. Something deep in me stirred something I thought was gone. He couldn't help but exhale, the weight of his own confession shaking him. You make me question the value of what I've done. Why are you so important to me in this? Jacob noticed Sarah's expression shifting from skepticism to a softness that surprised him. Jacob, you're aware that you have a choice to make. You can be a visionary leader who empowers others, or a traditional businessman who keeps others small, she said, her voice holding a quiet strength. He leaned forward, grappling with her insight. It was a challenge he hadn't anticipated. For years, he had meticulously crafted his path through competitiveness and authority, but now, she was asking him to embrace vulnerability. But what if I fail at that, Sarah? What if I can't let go of the need to control? Then that's a failure we'll both learn from, she replied pointedly. But if you don't try, you'll never know what is possible. The truth in her words reverberated within him. Failure had always been a specter haunting his thoughts. Yet this collaboration was pivoting him towards something that could redefine that fear. As they stayed locked in that moment of understanding, Jacob realized he had to decide how far would he go in this uncertain venture. Would he meet her enthusiasm with equal parts sincerity? She shifted in her seat, breaking the spell. Let us talk about tangible goals. What can we accomplish together? He could see the potential unfolding before him. New ideas flickered in his mind like distant stars aligning. Let us start with a pilot project, something small that showcases both our strengths. We can brainstorm content that tells stories. If it resonates, then we increase. Small steps can lead to big changes, she nodded. But we have to stay on track, and that means we need to keep each other accountable. The conviction in her voice stirred something deep within him. I want that, Sarah. Let us commit, then. We'll set measurable goals that reflect our vision. He felt a surge of energy. They were cementing a partnership that was no longer just based on business, but intertwined with their aspirations. The tension between them melted slightly. Possibility took its place. But as the conversation progressed, a nagging worry intruded his newfound excitement. Could they maintain the momentum when they returned to the chaotic pulse of the world outside this coffee shop? As if the cafe itself sensed a shift in the atmosphere, the barista accidentally dropped a tray of glasses, shattering the momentary tranquility. Both Jacob and Sarah flinched, their connection momentarily severed. See, Sarah said with a half-smile. Life is chaotic, and we'll have to navigate it. Jacob straightened, a determined spark igniting within him. Then let us not just navigate it, we'll own it. Her affirmation was met with a shared intensity, and despite the broken glass on the floor, he sensed they were on the precipice of crafting something meaningful. They were both unsteady, yet firm in their commitment to explore the messy, beautiful intricacies of collaboration. They chatted about practical steps to take moving forward. A profound realization washed over him. While they could outline strategic moves, the real challenge would lie in grappling with their fears, pushing boundaries, and embracing the unpredictable together. But just as they planned the next phases of their collaboration, A familiar voice interrupted the unmistakable tone of Jacob's business partner, Alan, cutting through their bubble of potential. "Hey, what is going on here?" Alan's gaze shifted between them, and Jacob felt a lurch in his gut. The looming presence of his past decisions neared, as did the pressure to uphold his previous image. Had he unwittingly invited scrutiny into this delicate agreement? Would Alan's expectations unravel the possibilities they had begun to weave together? Jacob's mind raced as he turned to face Alan. The question not only hung in the air, but also clung to the walls of the cafe like the lingering scent of freshly brewed coffee. He could feel the weight of expectation bearing down on him, and he instinctively straightened in his seat. Here was the voice of his past, a reminder of the narrow path he had carved, one defined by rigid ambition and the desire to prove his worth. "Just discussing a new project idea," Jacob said, trying to keep his voice steady. He felt the urge to shield the fragile connection he had begun to forge with Sarah. He couldn't allow Alan's presence to derail their budding collaboration. Alan raised an eyebrow, skepticism etched into his features. "Another one? You know how I feel about your side projects, Jacob. They tend to distract. Focus on what matters." There it was, the familiar warning wrapped in the guise of care, yet it felt more like a shackle. The contrast between Alan's businesslike energy and the vibrant atmosphere that Sarah infused into their discussion struck him. She had invited the chaos, while Alan sought control. Jacob felt an internal tug-of-war igniting. "Actually, it's different this time," Jacob replied, forcing himself to embrace the assertiveness that was becoming increasingly foreign to him. "Sarah has innovative ideas that could reshape our brand. I think we could learn and grow from this." Alan scoffed, disbelief washing over his face like a cold wave. "Learning and growing don't pay bills, Jacob. You've built your empire on solid ground, not whims. Keep your eyes on the prize." But the reality of what Alan suggested pierced through Jacob like a bolt of lightning. It was all so clear now. The path he had chosen felt safe, but stifling. Was this really what he wanted? Success defined by others' standards? He had already caught a glimpse of another way, one that wrapped ambition in a blanket of creativity and connection. "Maybe it's time I redefine what that prize looks like," Jacob said, nodding towards Sarah. "I need to explore new avenues, Alan." This he gestured between himself and Sarah, isn't just a whim. "It's about building something authentic." The silence that followed was heavy. Alan's expression shifted from disbelief to contemplation, but Jacob could see a flicker of disappointment in his eyes. All the years they had navigated the business world together flashed before Jacob's mind. But now it felt like he was looking through a kaleidoscope, where vibrant patterns contrasted sharply with the monotonous blacks and grays. "Be careful," Alan warned, his voice low. "Your reputation is on the line." In that moment, Jacob grappled with Alan's ultimatum. He felt torn, teetering on the precipice of personal transformation. Did he truly want to risk the security that had enveloped him for so long? Or was the pursuit of passion worth every moment of fear and doubt? As Alan excused himself and walked away, Jacob found himself captivated by Sarah's expression. She had witnessed the exchange, her eyes unwavering. "You stood your ground," she noted softly, and there was a warmth in her voice that ignited something deep inside Jacob, a simmering determination that called him forward. "I've been safe for too long," Jacob admitted, surprise tinged with excitement in his voice. "But I have no idea how to nurture that." Could their partnership push those boundaries more than he anticipated? "Let us make a plan," she suggested, voice steady with conviction. "We'll navigate both the inner and outer worlds, your reputation and our vision. It's how we redefine success together." Excitement coursed through him. They would not only create content, they would create a story, their own way to define success. Jacob crackled with renewed energy. He could feel the road opening beneath them, vibrant and uncertain. Yet, a shadow lurked beneath the surface. Would Alan's warning resurface, tainted with urgency? And, more importantly, could he truly let go of the image he had cultivated for so long? "Let us brainstorm our first move," he proposed, leaning closer to Sarah, his resolve hardening. "But we'll need to be aware of the pitfalls." Her eyes sparkled with enthusiasm as they dove into a world of ideas. Yet Jacob couldn't shake the feeling that confronting Alan had only scratched the surface of deeper challenges yet to come. The stakes were rising, and with each passing moment, The question loomed larger in his mind. Could he reconcile who he had been with who he wanted to become? The horizon was brightening, but the shadows at his back remained. Was he ready to confront them? Ideas swirled around Jacob's mind like an unexpected burst of wind. Each conversation with Sarah felt like unlocking one more door in a labyrinth of creativity and passion he had long abandoned. Despite the moments of excitement, an undercurrent of tension tightened within him. Even as he envisioned the possibilities, he couldn't ignore the weight of Alan's warning. It drummed in his mind like a persistent reminder of caution. "Let us start with our unique narrative," Sarah urged, her voice unwavering. "Your brand has a story, but it's stuck in a worn-out groove. We need a fresh perspective that resonates with the audience." Jacob nodded, contemplating her words. The corporate jargon and safe marketing strategies were suffocating not just the brand, but his very essence. He realized he hadn't just been limiting his company. He had stifled his own voice. When was the last time he felt anything but the oppressive weight of success? As he thumbed through his notes, determination simmered. Defining success on his own terms beckoned like a siren's song. What if we stripped everything back? Jacob proposed suddenly, his eyes lighting up. Let us showcase raw, authentic experiences. Real stories from our users, not just glossy ads. That's what I want to explore. Sarah leaned forward, intrigued. You mean to humanize your brand? Allowing your customers to tell their stories? I love it. But we need to approach it delicately. It's a big departure from your usual methods. Apprehension flickered briefly in Jacob's core. Would Alan mock this vision? The impulse to retreat into his comfort zone strained against the vibrant possibilities Sarah painted. Yet his resolve hardened. If he was to break free from the rigid bounds of his past, he needed to forge into new territories, no matter how unsteady the ground felt. Right. We'll navigate it together. Maybe begin with interviews, he continued, a rhythm forming in his thoughts. We can gather stories directly from the users. It'll personalize our initiative and help us understand the brand from their perspective. Yes, Sarah exclaimed, her enthusiasm infectious. But we need a launch strategy, something to draw attention, create buzz. If we can generate interest, it'll give us the leverage to shift the narrative. Jacob's heart raced. The old Jacob would have scripted out a meticulous plan, resistant to spontaneity. But now, in Sarah's presence, he sensed a current of freedom that tickled his nerve endings. Let us take our first few interviews live on social media. Share raw conversations as they happen, unfiltered. People crave authenticity. He reveled in her wide-eyed approval. It sounds risky, but it's exactly the kind of bold move that will set us apart. The stakes will be high, but so will the potential rewards. Her words lit up Jacob's imagination. This was where passion met purpose, where his once stifled creativity could explode into being. Just as he felt momentum escalating, another nagging thought prickled the edges of his excitement. How would Alan perceive this? What would he say if he got wind of the direction Jacob was heading? The looming specter of his past began to seep back in, a reminder that boundaries had been reinforced by years of cautious decisions. As he sat across from Sarah, a sense of dread twisted in Jacob's stomach. He was steering toward uncharted waters, and failure felt like more than just a possibility. It felt like a lurking ghost ready to grip him in its shadows. Let us outline next steps, but first, I need to reach out to my circle, Jacob suggested, feeling a pulse of anxiety. I can't avoid Alan forever. I'll need to bring him in somehow, tell him the direction we're taking. As Sarah nodded, he couldn't shake the question beneath his thoughts. Would disclosing his new initiative empower him, or would it seal the doors to this transformative opportunity? Could he actually forge a new identity without losing the support he had relied on for so long? His departure from Alan's tight confines was proving to be a labyrinth of its own, each maneuver filled with the possibility of missteps. Promising boldness, he mused aloud, sometimes leads to unforeseen consequences. Instinctively, he knew he was at a precipice, peering into the unknown. Were his new ambitions just illusions, waiting to shatter with a single miscalculation? Determination drummed within him, yet uncertainty curled in the corners of his mind like a shadow. As they rolled up their notes and prepared to leave the cafe, Jacob felt a flicker of exhilaration, a fragile but persistent flame. Behind them, the cafe buzzed with everyday chatter, utterly unaware of the pivotal shift taking place within him. Can I navigate this carefully and still achieve what I want? He pondered, the question echoing in the empty spaces of his mind. And as they stepped into the vibrant street, he felt the weight shift slightly, the air thick with possibility. The real challenge awaited. Could he confront Alan with his budding dreams unscathed? Or would the conversation lead him back to the confines he had only just begun to escape from? Jacob's heart raced as he walked alongside Sarah, their plans woven from enthusiasm and the thrill of the unknown. The streets felt alive, pulsating with the kinetic energy of potential. But beneath that excitement, nagging doubt clouded his thoughts. How would Alan respond? Jacob had always relied on his mentor's approval, and now, pushing the envelope of creativity felt like wandering into treacherous territory. As they reached his office, the familiar facade loomed above him, a stark reminder of the safe, predictable realm he had inhabited for far too long. With a deep breath, Jacob seated himself at his desk, glancing at Sarah as she flipped open her laptop, excitement radiating from her. "Let us draft a proposal," she suggested, her fingers poised above the keyboard. "We should outline our vision for integrating user stories with our current campaigns." Dread knotted in Jacob's stomach. The proposal wouldn't be just about a fresh direction. It would be a manifesto of defiance against Alan's conventional methods. "What if Alan hates this?" he murmured, the words slipping out before he could rein them in. "Then it's time for a challenge," Sarah replied resolutely, her eyes focused on the screen. "You're not just some cog in a machine, Jacob. You're a visionary. Show him that." The conviction in her tone cut through the fog of his apprehension, and he felt a flicker of renewed determination. Perhaps she was right. Perhaps the fear of Alan's disapproval was the very shackles he had been desperate to shed. Fingers trembling slightly, he began typing the proposal. The words flowed more easily than he had anticipated, fueled by a growing sense of urgency to share his vision. The more he wrote, the clearer his thoughts became. He could see their campaign not as a risk, but as an opportunity for a groundbreaking evolution, a chance to connect on a level his business had never explored. As he crafted the narrative, a realization struck him. He was no longer the passive player in his own life. He was the architect of change, responsible for both the foundation and the framework. Fears began to dissipate, replaced with the exhilaration of ownership. "I want to conduct the first interviews next week live on social media," Jacob declared, the conviction in his voice surprising even him. He turned to Sarah, who wore an approving smile. "I'll contact the users, invite them to share their stories, and we'll broadcast it. No filters, nothing staged." "Yes, that's the spirit," Sarah cheered, clapping her hands together. "Once we go live, we'll attract attention like moths to a flame. This momentum can't just be a spark, it needs to ignite." Driven by her enthusiasm, Jacob continued packing the proposal with actionable insights, framing each innovative idea as a pivotal move away from the robotic, formulaic strategies of the past. He began organizing a list of potential users to reach out to, mapping out their experiences and how best to present them. He lost track of time, completely absorbed in this newfound purpose. Suddenly, a flash of self-doubt surged through him like a tide. What if the stories didn't resonate as he thought they would? What if their audience rejected this bridge he was trying to build? Could he face Alan, realizing he'd possibly overstepped once again? As he prepared to save the document, pressing the button felt monumental. Taking this step meant confronting Alan and revealing not just the proposal, but a side of himself he had long buried. This was a leap not just into a new professional reality, but into an identity that was genuinely his. "All right, let us do it," he said finally, steeling himself for the inevitable confrontation. "I'll schedule a meeting with Alan for tomorrow." Sarah's excitement was palpable, but he could sense a ripple of concern beneath her cheer. "Just be prepared for his reaction. This will be a departure for him, just like it is for you." The words hung in the air as Jacob locked eyes with her, feeling the weight of their significance. He had the tools to transform this meeting from one of anxiety into one of empowerment. The initial thrill was looming. Yes, but could he sustain it during the encounter with Alan? As he closed his laptop, a surge of adrenaline coursed through him. Every second ticked with palpable tension, reminding him that change was not merely necessary, it was inevitable. And what if this meeting was the catalyst for everything to follow? What if, In facing Alan, Jacob discovered not just clarity, but the very essence of the narrative he sought to create. The real uncertainty wasn't in what Alan would say. It lay in what revelations might surface within Jacob himself, on the precipice of discovery and transformation. Jacob awoke the next morning with a tight knot in his stomach. The sun streamed through his window, illuminating the dust motes floating in the air, yet his mind was shrouded in doubt. How could he have thought a live interview series would go over well? The weight of his decision clung to him. He felt both exhilarated and terrified. After a rushed breakfast, he dressed carefully, selecting a crisp button-up shirt to convey professionalism, a silent costume for the role he was about to play. As he glanced in the mirror, practicing his confident smile, he felt a shiver of apprehension. This meeting held more significance than any he'd ever had. This was not merely about a proposal, it was about his identity as a professional. Arriving at the office, he was greeted by the familiar sight of colleagues immersed in their routines. Their laughter echoed off the sterile walls. He took a seat at his desk and stared at the proposal on his computer screen, the document shimmering with the weight of his aspirations. He could sense the ticking clock inching closer to noon, pushing his anxiety in tandem. "Jacob?" Sarah's voice cut through his thoughts. She stood at his door, concern etched on her face. "Are you ready for this?" "I think so," he replied, his voice betraying him. A slight tremor escaped, barely audible but all-encompassing to him. "Remember," she said, stepping into his office and leaning against the wall, arms crossed. "This is your vision. Own it. You've done the research. You're the expert now." "Yeah." But Jacob hesitated, the familiar doubts threatening to cloud his resolve once more. "What if Alan thinks this is a terrible idea? What if he sees me as just a kid reaching too far?" "Then you'll show him you're not a kid anymore," Sarah replied, her firm tone grounding him. "You've crafted something real here, something that can change how the business engages with clients. Don't lose sight of that." Her words wrapped around him, drawing out the strength he didn't quite believe he possessed. Jacob nodded, his pulse steadying as he focused on the proposal, mentally rehearsing his points. The clock struck noon, and he saw Alan emerge from his office, his imposing figure immediately filling the space with an air of authority. With determination hardening his resolve, Jacob rose to meet him, knowing this could shape his trajectory in unimaginable ways. "Jacob," Alan said, his voice deeper than he remembered, a hint of curiosity rising in his tone. "I've set aside some time to discuss your proposal." They settled into the conference room, the atmosphere thick with expectation. Jacob directed his gaze at the carefully arranged slides, each representing a facet of his vision. Every click of the mouse echoed in the silence, sending ripples of trepidation through him. He had to present this while he couldn't afford to falter. "Let us hear it," Alan urged, folding his arms across his chest, adopting a stance that mirrored his typical resolve, steady, yet intimidating. Jacob began to speak, his voice growing stronger as the initial nerves began to fade away. He introduced the core concept, elaborating on the integration of user stories into their strategic narratives. As he spoke, he caught Alan's scrutinizing gaze, dynamically assessing his response. "Interesting," Alan replied at last, raising an eyebrow as he processed the information. "But do you truly believe our clients will resonate with this method of engagement? There's a risk involved." "It's precisely because of that risk that we can reposition ourselves positively," Jacob retorted, emboldened by the core of his beliefs. "We have the potential to be leaders, not just followers. We need to connect, to humanize our messages." The feedback from potential users suggests they crave authenticity, not marketing jargon. Alan shifted in his seat, the weight of the conversation rippling beneath the surface. Jacob's heart raced, but so did something else: hope. Behind that professional exterior, he sensed a flicker of interest kindling in Alan's eyes. Yet there was still a mountain to climb, and doubt lingered in the back of Jacob's mind. Would Alan reject this bold vision entirely, or could he find common ground? The thought stirred a relentless apprehension inside. Finally, Alan took a breath, the weight of the moment hanging thick with implications. "This is an intriguing proposition, Jacob, but you know this challenge is not just about ideas. It really depends on execution. Can you deliver on that?" Jacob felt the heat of the moment, as if it crystallized time itself. "I can, Alan. I will." The words poured out, confident and unyielding, But the real perhaps was not in convincing Alan alone. As the conversation continued, Jacob felt something shift within himself. He stood on the edge of redefining his narrative. But in his pursuit of approval, what sacrifices awaited him? Moments from his past flashed through his mind, reminding him of the complexity behind ambition. With the meeting drawing to a close, Alan's demeanor shifted. "I'll consider this. But understand, changes like this don't come easy. Neither do breakthroughs," Jacob replied, steeling himself. He left the meeting feeling a whirlwind of emotions, an exhilarating mix of elation and fear. What was the next step? Could he truly navigate the waters he had charted? The pressure intensified as he exited the office, accompanied by an underlying thought. The journey of owning his creativity was just beginning. As stress intertwined with hope, a new dilemma surfaced. In his quest for acceptance, how much of himself was he willing to compromise? The glass doors reflected an image of him standing at the crossroads of ambition and truth. What awaited him next was both daunting and promising. In the days following his conversation with Alan, Jacob found himself immersed in a whirlwind of creativity and possibility. The blend of uncertainty and excitement drove him to begin drafting outlines for their live interview series. As the project came to life, he felt like a sculptor shaping raw materials into something meaningful. With each passing hour, an exhilarating sense of purpose flooded through him. He was officially carving his own path. His anticipation increased as he prepared to meet Sarah again, anxious to share how Alan's skepticism had sparked newfound vigor rather than fear within him. They set a meeting at a local co-working space, an inviting area full of energy and a buzz of ideas. As he entered the bright, open room, he spotted Sarah deep in concentration, fingers flying across her keyboard with renewed zest. Her focused expression reminded him of someone wholly absorbed in the act of creation, a stark contrast to his previous, more restrained self-concept. "Hey," Jacob greeted, his voice brimming with eagerness. "I had my meeting with Alan. How did it go?" she asked, glancing up, interested but also expectant. Jacob took a breath, savoring the moment. He was skeptical, but I held my ground. I think he might be willing to entertain the idea, albeit cautiously. The sunlight streaming through the large windows illuminated Sarah's face as it broke into a smile. "That is fantastic. Your conviction is vital for this project, as you know. What do you want to tackle next?" "I want to finalize our approach for the live series," he replied confidently. "We need to make it dynamic and engaging, but still true to our goals of authenticity and connection." "I love it," Sarah said, her voice filled with excitement. "Let us brainstorm themes. We could start highlighting stories that dive into the unique experiences of our users. Real challenges, real triumphs. It must be relatable." Jacob could feel the synergy between them resurface as they began exchanging ideas with vigor. The brainstorming session cracked open doors of inspiration he didn't even know existed. Together, they sculpted a vibrant narrative style that would echo their shared visions, a tapestry woven from genuine human experiences. The days turned into weeks. They worked tirelessly. The weight of Jacob's earlier doubts began to lift. Passion replaced anxiety, transforming the project into a conduit of connection not only between their audience and the brand, but between themselves too. He began letting go of the rigid structures he had relied on in business, and embracing the chaos that came with real-life stories. They mapped out their first few interviews, cautiously aware of their own potential to create something revolutionary. But the process stimulated an eagerness that fired them both. Soon, it was time for their first live session. Jacob could hardly breathe with anticipation as they made final preparations. The dim light cast shadows on the small stage, setting a welcoming atmosphere. He exchanged glances with Sarah as they took their places behind the table adorned with a few simple props. It felt very much like a leap into the unknown. As the camera rolled, Jacob's heart raced, blending nerves with purpose. He began by introducing themselves to their audience, sharing their intention to create a space that honored real stories, real challenges, and authentic connections. Gradually, feedback flooded in from their viewers. Messages and comments resonated with encouragement and appreciation. "This is refreshing. I can relate to this. Thank you for sharing." Each response ignited a spark of validation within him. Their stories mattered, and the energy from the audience was euphoric. By the end of the session, there was a palpable change within Jacob. The anxious boy who once feared judgment had transformed into a confident man standing firm in the pursuit of authenticity. Both he and Sarah left the stage, breathless yet exhilarated, a pristine reflection of what they had achieved together. They celebrated their success, no longer mere colleagues, but true partners in an endeavor that represented mutual respect and collaboration. As weeks of the project unfolded, something deeper solidified within him. Jacob had successfully forged an alliance not just with Sarah, but with the essence of who he truly was. His initial intentions of rekindling connection had morphed into something far more powerful, revealing a profound understanding of vulnerability and purpose. Months later, as Jacob watched their brand receiving accolades, he understood the influence they had fostered within the industry. He felt grounded in the knowledge that he wasn't just building a brand, he was creating a legacy. With each challenge they overcame together, his resolve only intensified, providing a steady shot of confidence that coursed through him. Achievements are often measured in accolades, but for Jacob, it was the epiphanies, the tangible growth, the authentic connections, and the unmasked vulnerability that now defined his personal success. Steering clear of superficiality, he had built a narrative forged in realism, connecting to people on a level he once deemed unattainable. There, within the world of authentic storytelling, Jacob Stewart had finally found his voice, and with it, an enduring purpose that would guide him through the uncharted adventures ahead. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about this conclusion. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformative journey.